This is let's call it a relaxed session where we're going to talk about a little bit about a framework that we use at Women Who Code about identifying like how to upskill, identifying where to spend your energy in your early career. And we're going to talk about resources. And then at the end, you can ask us any questions about Women Who Code, how to get involved, how to use Women Who Code to advance your early career as well. So let's get started. So my name is Anna Shur-Wilson. I am the program manager for career navigation at Women Who Code, and I am very lucky in that means that I get to work at Women Who Code full time with my colleague Grecia, and I cover a lot of different things in my role, one of which is all the different programs for the non-technical aspects of your career. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Grecia.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am Grecia Castaldi. I am the Director of Community at Women Who Code. I am located in Mexico, so it's 9 p.m. for me. It's pretty late, but we are here supporting the event. What I do at Women Who Code, I manage all of our different communities. We will speak more about our communities later in this talk, but I have to say that we have so many local communities around the world, and we have some virtual technical tracks as well. So we'll speak more about that.
Great, thank you. Okay,
so let's warm up. If you can share in the chat your responses to these questions. When learning something new, at what point do you feel ready to share your learning with others? And then, which resources help you learn best? Do you have an answer, Anna, while people start thinking of their answers?
So, I mean, it's hard to answer this because I did write this question, and it is a trick question, which we'll talk about later. But I will be honest with myself. This whole session is about a lot of self-reflection. That's going to be the main goal of this session. And so if I'm doing self-reflection, it is true that sometimes I wait a really long time and I feel the pressure to be perfect before I can share my learnings to others. And that does mean that sometimes I don't share some things. I see. What about you, Grecia? I also see people answering in the chat.
Yes, I was reading their answers and I can relate to some of them. It depends, I think, on what I am learning about. I really like to do some research about, the tools that we use every day at work. And then sometimes I just need to read a quick tutorial or a blog article, and then I'm ready to share with everyone and test it out when I get so excited, with new things. Mm-hmm. But then when it's something completely new, I don't feel very comfortable sharing until I've read everything and watched every single video. So I think it really depends. And I see the answers here. I see Priya saying when I have had a lot of experience on it. I really like Stephanie's answer. When I feel comfortable answering questions that might arise, I agree with that. I think that's a key point. If it's something new also for you, you need to be able to answer questions.
And I see. And Emily said, if it's a course, I tend not to mention anything until I've completed it. I understand that as well. I also think it depends a little bit about the situation you're in. And we're going to talk a lot about like community and that helping, because for example, if I learn something new, I will run very quickly to tell Gracia, but that's because we've established emotional safety at work and that we feel very comfortable with each other. So
that's true. And what about resources? I see people sharing documentation, blogs, YouTube articles. I really like asking about which one do you prefer, videos or blogs? I prefer blogs, I think. Mm-hmm. I prefer to read, but then videos can also be very helpful. So What do you think, Anna?
I think it really depends. I guess it depends. I honestly do find sometimes like YouTube videos a little bit too slow for me, and I find myself going ahead.
Yes.
Okay, let's get into the session now that we've people have settled in, come over from the panel. Welcome everybody. And let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So these are our session objectives. So our title is Crafting Your Tech Career and Upskilling for Success, specifically in your early career, trying to really focus in and make the best use of your time because you are very busy. So we are going to brainstorm emerging technologies and trends together, talk about how to select a focus area that speaks to personal goals and motivations. And then we'll also map out different kinds of learning plans that you can share with your manager or your support network. And we have a special exclusive Women Who Code learning plan that you can fill in yourself and take with you that Grecia is going to share in the chat later. Yes, very exclusive. That was made with the help of our designer and our program team. So this is how we, in our kind of research and talking to the community, we have broken down making a new learning goal into 3 different steps. So the first one is researching new trends, taking in the information, talking to people. But then the biggest part, the largest step of making this new goal that we found is that actually narrowing in and defining your technical goal, but then your motivation for that goal often will take a lot longer than you think it's going to. And so that's what we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. And then the third one is creating the learning plan. And I thought this was kind of interesting because I think sometimes we think the actual learning takes the most time, but kind of as we've been talking about this and talking to the community, you can really speed things along if you have step 1 and step 2, if you spend a lot of time on it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Grecia.
Yes. Okay, so let's do this quick exercise with everyone. What new skills will be relevant to your role or field in 2024 and beyond? And we will open a Slido, I think, in our next slide. Yes, so we can, you can go to slido.com or scan the QR code, type that code there, and let us know. We want to start researching new trends, right? So that's the first step. What do you think is going to be relevant to your profile, to your role? It really depends on what you do at your job. So do anything. You can do AI. We have many new AI topics. That's perfectly fine. Or if you know of anything else.
Okay, let's see.
There you go. AI was
yay,
the first
good
one.
job. Whoop. Oops, someone put in yeah. Let's see. I think we're going to have a lot of AI.
Yes, it's a very common question we get at all of our events about AI. I'm glad you are starting to do your research around that. Data engineering, web dev, infrastructure, sustainability, cloud. What else? Project management.
I'm excited about project management and security. As it grows bigger, that means we're getting multiple answers here. Security, data privacy. We actually have a talk immediately after this one about data privacy, so I definitely recommend looking at the schedule for that as well.
I'm also very glad to see soft skills and leadership because those are usually forgotten, but very important.
Yeah. And I'm particularly excited to see security taking the lead here. I would recommend to the audience, you're gonna hear a sound because I'm going to screenshot this for my own learning plan. I recommend taking a screenshot. And communication skills, large language models, leadership, generative AI, all of these are amazing. So we're going to keep this in mind as like the first part of our kind of exploration a little bit, because I want to point a couple of things out. One, as Grecia said, it's exciting to see the quote unquote soft skills, or let's call them leadership skills, in addition to the technical skills. And then we also see, like, look how big generative AI is, how big AI is in general. But that is a very large topic. And so sometimes what happens is that when you're like faced with these large ideas, you can't make your learning goal just be like all of AI. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to break these down as part of the next step. So one way that you can break these down is by doing research. I wanted to share this this resource in particular that's from McKinsey that every year this consulting firm publishes like top trends in tech in 2023. And you can see that there is a lot of overlap between what you all shared and this one. So we have like AI revolution, trust architecture, next gen software development. I also saw someone say low code, which is personally very interesting to me, and cloud, that was also on there. So I think when you do this research, it's really important to kind of pair what your impressions are of like your own job, and then if you can connect them to these bigger trends, that can also absolutely help you narrow down a little bit more as well. So now that we've brainstormed all these like really big ideas, the next step is we're going to get into step number 2, which is like really defining the why. Because I also think that in my experience, a lot of things that happen when you are an engineer or developer is that you are often at the whims of like business decisions that aren't always like connected to your day-to-day, but really change your life. And then they're also, business decisions can also be affected by like what is trendy. So like it's very clear that AI is trendy right now. And so sometimes you'll hear from above, from like non-engineers, like we have to do AI, but like no more clarity than that. That we can't do anything with that. We have to like narrow it down and talk to our community, talk to our peers to interpret these kind of lofty business goals into something that we can actually achieve. So this is a framework that we developed at Women Who Code of these like questions that you can ask yourself when you get faced by like things that are super, super trendy, like AI. Or, for example, Ramya, who was on the panel that we just had, said when she started, Internet of Things was like, IoT was like the biggest, trendiest thing, but she didn't actually work on it because it didn't have anything to do with her business. So there's like a lot of push and pull about like what is trendy and like what actually affects your day-to-day. So here are some like guiding questions that we thought of to help you narrow in a little bit on what skill is actually important, and do you have time for it, and is it a good use of your time? Like when you're thinking about a new skill, it can be helpful to think about why you want this new skill. Is it for a promotion at your current company? Is it for a job opportunity outside of your company? Or is it like a certification to like raise your salary capability? I think the number 2 for me is something that really represents like a mind shift, especially in your early career, because in your early career, you are so focused on getting your first job, learning the basics of code, learning the basics of programming, that sometimes you forget to connect what you are doing day to day to the business goals of your current employer. So if you are working right now, does your learning goal connect to like the report that they put out about like their strategic plan, like any earnings calls, anything like that they have done? But then sometimes like just learning is enough, but you have to know the difference when you're coming up to a new skill. So you can ask yourself, will this new skill help you stand out to your current employer? Or are you looking to just be an industry leader in an emerging technology to be able to give talks like at events like Connect Asia or something like that? And also, like, you need to know whether it's for immediate application, meaning you have to like move on it really fast, or is it more of an intellectual exercise? Anything to add, Grecia? What does this make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I can wait to go to the case study to see more examples of this, so people can start to think of their own experiences.
Perfect. So one way to kind of practice doing this, we have a fake Women Who Code member that represents many different people that we've talked to, many different people that come to us and like join events trying to figure out what they're going to learn next. So let's imagine Angela. She's from Manila, and she's a front-end engineer at a mid-sized startup. That is, every detail of this is very important. And she has 2 years experience. And so she has a goal, which is to learn a new tech skill next year that provides job security. And it's because she wants to remain relevant and she's feeling nervous about this unpredictable market. So you'll notice that like Angela doesn't have a specific goal yet. She really only has her motivations. But her motivations are really clear. It's about the current job market. It's not about 5 years from now. It's not about 20 years from now. It's not about like any other time except for this moment in history. Is that she's an early career engineer and she's feeling nervous. So I'm going to pass it to you, Grecia, as we talk through like maybe some of the things that she could focus on based on her motivations.
Yeah, sure. So let's think of many ways Angela can go from here. So she wants to provide some job security at her current company. One thing I will suggest first is going to Angela's manager and asking about the company's goals. So it's really like, I want to learn AI or cybersecurity, but then if we go and check our company's goals, they might have different things in mind. Or let's say, for example, she's a front-end engineer. She's using some technologies. She's using maybe React right now. But then if her company wants to start using some other new technologies, or they want to start developing progressive web apps, for example, so she can start focusing on those. So that's one thing, the company's goals. And then the other thing is, as we can see, this is a mid-sized startup with a multinational employer, So one way she could go is going to another country, maybe. Going to another country means that she will need to see where exactly, if she needs another language, if English is not her first language. Like in my case, I had to, of course, learn English and, to be able to work in a multinational company. And then also, how is the industry in that country she wants to go? That's another thing. Whenever we see startup, we might think like, the job security. We might start thinking moving to a bigger company or something more secure. I mean, it depends on you. I have worked in startups and it's a really great culture, but then you start thinking maybe I should move to a bigger company. So if that is her goal, maybe she can start looking at bigger companies, asking her friends, doing some networking, asking some senior engineers, like what is trending right now in the industry? How can I move and start looking for a senior position, in a bigger company or a different company, like maybe she doesn't want to be in a startup anymore. Maybe she does. Maybe she just wants to stay there. So like I told you, it's different things she could do depending on her motivations. It's not like Anna said, I want to learn AI because everyone is doing that. Is that really helpful for your job? Do you want to start looking for a position that will need more this skill, in this example, AI or something different? So I think it depends on what you want to do exactly.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think my personal advice is if you're like paralyzed by all the different choices, because we just listed like so many, and we're going to say this like a lot of times, is that once people define their motivation as like close as specifically as possible, like all the other noise falls away. So, for example, if Angela just decides that becoming indispensable, becoming important to her current company is the most important thing, she needs to figure out a skill that will save time at the company or save money and like stop. And that's the most important thing. If she decides that the most important thing for her is to be marketable for a new job, it's just like what Grecia said. That's when you need to like go out and start talking to the community and stuff like that. So, anything else before we move on to the next part?
I was going to say, I just remember someone said project management when we asked about the trends. This is also important because you might be a front-end engineer right now, but you want to move to a manager position. So if Angela wants to do that, then she can start thinking of, learning more about project management or, getting more skills around that. So that's also another path if you want to start moving to, a manager position.
Definitely. So the next part, let's imagine that Angela has made a decision. What decision do you think that Angela should make about her specific skill, Grecia? We'll keep talking about Angela.
Let's say I like the idea of moving to another country. Since she's working for a multinational company, I guess she will have many opportunities around that.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So Angela's main goal or her motivation is to be able to experience the world. Like she believes like going into tech gives her like opportunities she wouldn't have had before. So her main goal is like a temporary transfer at her same company to an office in a different country, like let's say London. So she wants to go to London. So she needs to choose a skill that makes her indispensable, but then she also needs to like start networking a little bit. So let's say that when we start talking about making a learning commitment and plan of action, should we focus on a technical skill or focus on getting out and meeting the people that can get her that promotion?
I think both are important. Let's focus on the technical skill because we asked more about technical skills at the beginning.
Perfect. Okay. So Angela found out that they want to make a progressive web app. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yes, sounds great.
And it's going to be based in the London office. So that checks off everything on her list. So now she has to make a learning commitment and make a plan of action. So we developed Women Who Code with like community input and giving different, talking to people and giving different presentations. We have a learning commitment that can take into account like your planning, your time period, all of that stuff. This is like very general, but we put it all together for you. So we're going to do a little bit of an overview on that. So fantastic. So once, as we were talking about, as we were just saying, Angela has decided on her skill. She's decided on what the time period might be. So maybe like in a year, this is like a longer term goal. So she can start doing a learning plan. And a learning plan is extremely, extremely personal to you. It can be formal, informal, and it can definitely be informal if you're learning independently. In our case, Angela is going to be learning at work, and we'll talk about that. But as you start writing things down, you can start making like a reasonable timeline. So in our example, like getting a transfer to a different country within 2 months is not a reasonable timeline. So you need to start talking to people and say like what actually is a reasonable timeline. In your learning plan, you want to make sure that you have SMART goals. We'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. Also, one thing that is like a little bit different and maybe surprising is that in your learning plan, you can also talk about who is your support team. So in our example, Angela is learning for something for work. So she might want to try to take her time during work to work on it and learn it. So she needs to make sure that her manager is on her side and is supportive of this goal, because she's going to need to carve out time and maybe also ask for some funding and ask for money to like take the class. And so in the link that Grecia dropped, we literally have a place where you can write like, I need to ask my manager for this amount of money, because it's hard to ask people for money, especially if you don't see other people taking advantage of like a learning development stipend. And then it's also, you can put in your learning plan, like, who in my personal life do I need support from to tackle this goal? Because it's very likely you are going to have to take time out of work, outside of working hours, to do this. So when we've given this presentation before, we've talked to people who maybe are taking care of a grandparent or a sibling or their own child. And so they have to talk to their friends and family and figure out like, how is this going to change my day to day, and be like very upfront about their time. And then also we definitely recommend having a place in your learning commitment where you check in with yourself regularly and really define for you, like, what does done look like to you? Is done when you're like living in the flat in London, like everything is perfect? Or is done just being honest with your manager and saying that you want this promotion? I'm going to pass it to you, Grecia, if there's anything that you want to add about things that you would add to your own learning commitment.
Yes, and I love that you included something about their personal lives, because that's true. You don't need to sacrifice some things, or maybe you need to make changes, yes, but also take your time. Consider we are all people. We have our needs. We need to be with our family. We need to do our personal things. So you need to consider that too. So when you are finding your support team, also consider that it's not only professional, it's not only your manager who is going to approve this, it's also your friends, your colleagues who are going to help you and who are going to give you some of their time for you to achieve this goal.
And so let's get into SMART goals a little bit more deeply, especially if we're thinking about approaching a manager about incorporating these into your like review period or something like that. And so a SMART goal, and there's like a lot of talk in the career navigation space, whether this is relevant or not. So you can also make it your own thing. But to me personally, the things that really stick out to me are making sure that it's achievable, like it's reasonable, and that it's time bound, but reasonable. I think that sometimes we talk to members that get a little bit of an information overload and they feel like they have to learn things really, really quickly or they will be left behind. But that just means that everyone is unhappy. So how can you find a timeline that works for you personally? And like that's something you have to figure out for yourself, but then also professionally. And that's where we'll talk a little bit more about community, but that's where coming to events like this and connecting to people and sharing your goals like very openly and proudly, like people can say, oh, well, I don't think like 2 weeks to learn this new skill is reasonable or something like that. Grecia, have you had a SMART goal ever that you'd like to share with us?
I will have to think about that, but I was thinking of the relevant part. I think relevant relates to our research at the beginning. Yeah. So we're checking the trends, but we're also checking if this tech skill in particular is relevant to our job. So I think that will be the relevant part, right? So this is relevant to me. I want to learn this because of a reason, and that's where the relevance comes from. Yeah, I can think of an example, but I have some pro tips for everyone in our next slide, so we can move there.
Let's do
and
it.
I can share with everyone.
Okay.
Okay, if you check your learning commitment, one question is how you are going to achieve it. One tip that I have for all of you is joining a tech community. If you are joining this event, you are most likely already part of Women Who Code. If not, I will share with you a link for you to check all of our communities. I told you I was going to talk more about our communities. We have more than 80 communities around the world, local communities doing in-person events, but also doing online events. And then we have 6 technical tracks that are completely online in English, and we have Slack groups, we have events every week that you can join from anywhere. So I really recommend you joining those, because there you will find many people who have similar interests to you. You can find mentors and you can do networking. You never know what opportunity you are going to find when you meet new people at these communities. You can always learn from our speakers, from our different members. People are always sharing. If you join our Slack communities, they are always sharing about new opportunities, events, things that are going on in the tech space that you will see, like maybe you didn't even know about a new technology, and you can learn it there. You can, if you don't have a chance to attend live events, if it's too early or too late for you, you can always check our YouTube channel. And I think we have more information in the next one. Yes, we have some learning resources. These are very helpful if you are working on your goals and doing this learning commitment. So you can attend digital events, you can check our YouTube channel. We have conferences like this one. We have coding resources. You can connect with people who have interests similar to yours. You can get our newsletter with different opportunities, both for events, but also job opportunities. You can listen to our podcast and maybe participate in one of the episodes of the podcast. And we have a blog as well. So there are many ways you can learn from our communities, from our leaders. And that's only one way you can connect with people, do networking. Of course, there are more communities around the world. But since you are here with us, I really recommend you checking those out. Okay, we'll start. You're muted, Anna. Go ahead.
Okay, we'd like to hear from everybody, and we'll share as well. Like the first step is just like being honest about what your goal is. So as we close up our session, we'd love to hear from you, and if you to share your 2024 goals and what kind of resources you are thinking about to reach them. And you can also leave us questions too. We can answer any questions about Women Who Code as well. Yeah. What about you, Grecia?
My goals.
Yes.
I am thinking, now that I see all of these new trendings and topics that everyone shared, I'm starting to look for some AI courses to getting the trend, not getting the trend, but it's something I feel like if we are in the tech industry, we need to understand. Maybe I don't do coding every day, but it's important for me to stay relevant and updated about all of those. So I think I will search for some courses around that. And about resources, I think I will need to check some videos first in our YouTube channel, because those are very beginner friendly. And then I might check some online courses. And I see some comments here. So Stephanie, leadership and refreshing my web dev and front-end skills. I love that. And then Valeria shared, my learning commitment in 2024 is master Node.js. Awesome. I love that. Great. Anyone else, please keep sharing. It's important that it makes sense to you. So if Node.js is important for your job to advance in your career, that is perfect.
Okay,
Cynthia is saying, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We'll get more insight into machine learning. You're sharing, everyone's sharing about their learning goals is making me really reflect on also how I learn best. And that's also something that you can do. Christina's saying Rust and Golang. I like that. And Sarah is stepping into leadership and learning Python for data analytics. I like that. Grecia and I were just talking about a meme that we had seen where like someone was working at a company that like refused to do Python, and so they like kept having to learn PHP. So I thought that was funny. Let's see. Oh, we have a question from Joanne. My company requires a lot of generalist engineers. As someone new, I feel myself being pulled in many different directions, different projects, and different tech stacks. I'm going to make you answer this question, Gracia. What advice for choosing what to focus on this scenario?
In this case, I will say go for what you prefer. So if you have different options, I will say, I mean, this is what I will do, trying out different things and then choosing the one I prefer doing. If you have the option to choose one of them and then, go in that direction, I think I will try that out. And if you are a beginner in all of them, maybe start checking some resources, some videos about the different things. Maybe ask someone in your company, someone who is a senior, what is their day-to-day like? What do they do? What kind of projects they do? And then you will be able to choose. Maybe getting a mentor inside your own company will be a good idea. So you can get first-hand information from them of what they do, what kind of projects, what skills do you need. That's what I will do.
Great. That just reminds me of, I hosted a talk recently with our former mobile fellow, and she was saying exactly what Grecia was saying, in that she started not really knowing where to start, and then she just like fell in love with Android development and then just like went all in, whereas her mentee likes lots of different things and kind of the company helped her. So it also just depends, like it's okay to fall in love with one thing. Georgette has a question that I would like to answer. I'm wondering how you might tailor this advice for someone who's entering the industry and what might be a suitable motivation. So like working for a bigger company just to get in, working for a bigger company under the macro goal of entering the industry would result in a different learning plan than wanting to be competent for a React role. It's hard to decide what would be a good path with the umbrella of entering the industry. First of all, yes, it is very difficult to decide. And second of all, yes, the reason why we wanted to do this tip for early career, and then we'll also talk a little bit about networking, because we're going to have a networking session for early career, is that I think some of the first step is like acknowledging that it's like a unpredictable job market right now, and it's a bit challenging to get your first role. And so I think that's a little bit part of the first step, is to like acknowledge it and like lean on community support to talk through all of these issues. So I would say my answer to Georgette is that every person that you talk to will have a very different opinion about what you should do. Some people think like going to a big company is the best thing that you can do in your first role. And some people will say going to a small company where you get to try lots of different things and you're not like siloed into one area is the best thing. My advice for a way to find your motivation is to figure out what do you want out of your first role? And often it's to meet people that are nice and that are going to care about your development. And it almost doesn't matter what company it is. I would like to know your opinion, Gracia.
Yes, in my experience, my experience was I worked for a very small company at the beginning of my career. And it worked because I experienced many different roles and I fell in love with user experience design, and I ended up working in that area for a while. So that was my experience, and it was perfect. So I, like you said, and I will suggest that path for anyone having those questions. But then it's okay if you prefer a bigger company, and if you want to, if you want to work in a bigger company and then starting your career there, that's also perfect. So I think it really depends. And I just want to say every path is okay. You can always change if you don't like what you
Mhm.
are doing. I just had a talk recently. I gave a talk to a group of students, and I told them it's okay if you make mistakes, and if you start in a role or in an area and then you decide it's not for you and you want to try something else, you are already there. You are already in the tech industry, and it's so easy to move to a
Mhm.
different role, to start over with a new language or a new technology. It's really easy. I mean, you can stress and think it might not be very easy for you, but it is.
Yeah, I also want to share that I've talked to a lot of people recently that have really endorsed the idea of going to a company where you like the people, whatever role it is, and then like getting promoted. I think the advice in the past often for early career people was like leave after like another year, another job, another year, another job. And I really see the advice changing a lot in our community and in like talks. And so finding a place that like does have promotion availability, finding a place where like lateral moves or being able to switch teams, like when Grecia said you want to try something new, that you actually can switch teams, I think is like a lot more valuable right now than maybe people have felt in the past. Um, I I love this. I'm trying to share these resources as we close up. I wanted to share all of our favorite resources. And then at the end, Sarah's asking if we can share LinkedIn links. Let's do it at the end so that we can make sure that everyone can get these links. So there's a couple of things that I recommend as you're like starting this journey. I like hire.com state of software engineers report a lot because they surveyed software engineers about what motivates them to learn a new skill. And like the biggest motivation was because my job is making me. And so like that's very interesting, okay? But that's what the community is saying. And then 25% was just because like I'm a nerd and I love learning. And so like that's also like I love that it's like we're like a nerdy industry. We like learning. That's also okay. Like it really is okay just to enjoy. And then I also really like Rizelle Scarlett has presented at Women Who Code events in the past, and she has this blog about learning in public, which is about, she is a developer advocate, which means she learns like new technologies as a job while blogging and how that has helped her get new jobs. We have the McKinsey Tech Report. Then we have this blog, Advancing Your Tech Skills, which is something that I wrote for Women Who Code that is a recap of this presentation. And then we also have our learning commitment worksheet. And Grecia is putting all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate everyone's interest and everyone sharing in the chat about their goals. This means a lot to us, having people joining, sharing, and learning from our sessions.